1 minute before. And do we have the other recording device in place?
Not yet. I was gone for 3 days last week.
I thought we just had to stick it in the slot.
It wasn't that easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and George looked at it too.
Okay.
So there must be some other thing. It may be the fact that we're recording off the USB that doesn't work.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Benton City Council meeting. This is the September 20th council meeting. And I would like to now let me see, I'll ask Mr. Briggs to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Wadsworth, are you here?
Here.
Councilman Sandretto, are you here?
Here.
Councilman Moakler, are you here?
Here.
Councilman Reed, are you here? Here. Councilwoman Funk, are you here?
Here.
Okay. All present. Okay. We'll move on now to the approval of the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay, do I have a second?
Wadsworth second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, aye.
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Funk, aye.
Moakler abstain.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, now it's time for staff reports. And I believe we have sheriff's report this evening. Is Commander Clark online?
Yes, good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
So, yeah, I'm Commander Matt Clark with the Sheriff's Office. We don't have a whole lot to report from last month. Everything is going the way it should be there in the city. We're doing extra patrols right now in the school zones. Schools are back in session, which everybody knows. It's good to see the kids there, and we will continue to do the school zone patrols and just be proactive out there in the city.
Okay, do any of the council members have any questions on the report from Commander Clark?
No, Madam Mayor, but I do have a point of order as far as agenda and
Did I
not
skip something?
not approving it.
Oh. I think, yes, you're correct. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So we will.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay. And then, is there a second? Okay. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, aye.
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye. We have an addition.
Okay,
Funk, aye.
I thought when we spoke that you were going to take care of it. Okay.
So if we could add an agenda item under K 3. That will be
Craig, could you put the mic close to you, please?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So if we could add an agenda item under K3, it'll be under the same statute 4230 110 subsection G.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to approve the amended agenda?
I'll pull my initial motion and I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Read second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, aye.
Wadsworth, I.
Read I.
Funk, I.
Mochler, aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Are there any visitor comments? Hearing none, we will move on to continue the regular reports. So we have heard the sheriff's report. We have the engineer's report. Are you planning to?
Prior to Mr. Rainey getting that going, if I can, Madam Mayor, have the floor. Commander Clark, thank you very much for all that you guys in the sheriff's department's doing. I know interacting with them and stuff, it's been great. Good things are happening. And we definitely enjoy seeing your y'all's presence here in Benton City. So thank you.
Definitely, and I will add that Commander Clark spoke highly of you guys as well, so.
Yes, I did. It's always a pleasure for us to interact with everybody there in Benton City, and feels like we're always welcome there. And we just appreciate everything that the community does.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry about that interruption.
That's okay. Okay, Commander, I guess you're off the hook. We'll go to the engineer. report now.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I wasn't aware I was going to be doing a
Oh,
report, but that's all right.
okay.
I can just give a couple of key highlights.
okay,
Hope Lane, we're in the middle of that water line project. Tomorrow, we're having a pre-construction meeting for the 9th Street sewer relocation. Is at 414 9th Street. So that'll be kicking off the following week. And then we're waiting for the draft agreements from the county for the ARPA money. That should be coming anytime now. I would expect it within the week. And then we'll bring that for you guys to review and have the attorneys review it. And then we can move forward with the ARPA 09 money exchange.
okay.
And so, yep.
Any questions for Mr. Rainey? Okay, hearing none,
Thank you.
thank you. And I would like to urge all of the speakers today to be as brief as possible. We have a large amount of things on the agenda and executive sessions, so if we could move quickly through that, that would be really good.
Madam Mayor, may I provide a quick committee update?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so on September 9th, Mayor Lehman and I had an update call with Union Pacific Railroad with Aaron, which is about the purchase of the train bridge in line with the federal appropriation. We have no news on the federal appropriation other than it's continuing to move forward as part of the federal budgeting process. And Union Pacific, because it's been a while since we've started and restarted some of the discussions, is currently working through their internal processes to say how much they'll need to get for the bridge, like what the valuation is and stuff like that. So we have another call in less than 4 weeks for that update from their side. We just want to keep the discussions kind of moving along so that they're timed right and we continue to push, I mean, as a safety hazard and opportunity for the bridge, what can we do to continue to work in good faith if we're able to get special appropriations? That would be the main update I have since our last meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, are there any other staff reports that, Jennifer, were you speaking this week or? Okay, all right. Okay. No public hearings, so we will move now to the discussion items for new or unfinished business. So the first one is Nicole Stickney will be speaking about how other cities utilize Title 17. And we have a handout in our packets for that. Welcome, Nicole.
Good evening, Mayor. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
Council. Thank you for inviting me back to talk a little bit on this topic. On your agenda, I think it says something like I would present on how other cities deal with Title 17. Just to be clear, Title 17 is for Benton City. This is the locally adopted regulations. Other cities do have their own regulations in place. It's not always called Title 17 over in other cities. So I just wanted to give that as a brief introduction before I present on these slides. And as you'll see, I have quoted in different areas, different chapters from other cities to show you what they do, and it may or may not fall under their own Title 17. Okay, so with that, I think JV's going to advance the slides for me, which I appreciate, so I can speak directly to you. So my first slide, under the short subdivision process, we have outlined that the state law does not promulgate rules for processing short plats. Rather, it's up to the local jurisdictions to determine how that is done. What we do know is that counties and cities are required to adopt by ordinance their own regulations. And there are certain time limitations, recording and filing requirements, and vesting rules that apply. So I've outlined those. We do know also that short plats are always an administrative process, which means that there's no public hearing for those. And we do know that the legislative body, the council, is not involved in the short plat process. From time to time, we have needed to bring a short plat for consideration by council when there was something that triggered council review. And so in those cases, we would bring it to you. We'd have our recommend findings and conditions, and maybe we're looking at a variance or a deviation, something particular to that short plat that kind of bumped it up to a higher level of review, but those are unusual and not typical for short plat review. Next slide, I just have outlined the different definitions, just so that we're all on the same page about what a short plat and what a short subdivision is.
Excuse me, Nicole, excuse me, the slides are not showing.
Yeah,
Possible to broadcast those, JD? Have to do sharing or something. Just one moment, please.
can put it in presentation mode, or do they have that?
Share screen, bottom, middle. Screen. One in blue. No, do the one in blue. There you go. Double click that. Now bring it back up to PowerPoint.
Just at the bottom.
It's at the bottom of the screen on the taskbar. One over.
Perfect.
There
Okay.
you go.
Margaret, you can see that now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me know that those were not being shown. So as I mentioned, there are different definitions for short plat and short subdivision. These are in the code, and I have quoted here the updated code for the city as passed by ordinance earlier in the year. So short plat is a map or representation of a short subdivision. It's basically the drawing that gets recorded, whereas a short subdivision is the act of subdividing property. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight that in the administrative review portion, we have noted in the code that the administrator distributes copies to the city engineer and who reviews the proposed short plat for conformance to city standards for roads, utilities, and others improvements. It goes to city engineer. It also goes to other reviewers like the utility companies, Benton REA, whoever is applicable to that particular site. So it gets routed. I just wanted to highlight that. On the next slide, it shows that when we do the administrative review of short plats, we're inquiring into the public use and interest to be served by it. We have to make written findings. We have a whole myriad of things to look at, everything from streets and sidewalks, alleys, the configuration of utilities, whether utilities are looped to allow future development. There's a whole number of things that we look through, and we take that very seriously when we go through these. We also look for conformance to the comprehensive plan, of course. We're concerned about critical areas being present and how those are mitigated and so forth. Ultimately, we are looking to see if the public use and interest will be served by the proposed division of land. The next slide is the exact same information, but I just highlight two features here. First, the preliminary plat approval can be given on the basis that from time to time the final plat is recorded. We need to have these provisions in place. It is not deferred to the next person, and that's why conditions of approval are written. And then I also noted that it would not be in the public interest or public use or interest to have the land subdivided that are below the adopted standards, right? If we know that if we accept something that's below the city standards to begin with, why do we have the city standards in the first place? We don't want to accept things that are subpar according to our standards. The next slide is further highlights of Title 17. So it talks a little bit more about city standards in terms of sidewalks, curb, gutter sidewalk, also dedication of right-of-way. All of these things are important. We do have also in our code the statement that right-of-way should be improved to city standards, including but not limited to improvements like sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. There are provisions sometimes for not requiring a sidewalk if when it's not too close to a school and it's a long street that where maybe it's a little infill development and there's no sidewalks already there. It would just be a couple 100 feet of sidewalk that doesn't go anywhere. We're reasonable on those things. We definitely look at special conditions, but what's important to know is that when we do that, we have to take it under careful consideration for giving any sort of excuse from that. The next slide, I think we just skip through that one real quick. It's called State Rule on Irrigation Provisions. It's just a reminder that if you're in an irrigation district, you have to have a system for irrigation. That's in the state law. Okay, so with that, we will go on to the second part of my presentation, which is what do other small cities that are nearby do? That was the question that was posed previously. So that's really at the forefront of what I wanted to present today. Before we move on to that real quick, I just want to give you an analogy, if you will, and something to consider. A person could say, I am not a developer. I am not a subdivider. I am not in that role. And perhaps they don't view themselves in that role. But I would ask you, if somebody is bringing goods across the border from Canada, and they're reselling things and they tell you, well, I'm not an importer. I shouldn't have to do the import things that other people have to do. At what point do you say no? In fact, you are importing goods. It's kind of like you can say you're not attempting to do something in a certain process, but if you're actually applying for it, you're actually moving through that process. To me, that means that you are in fact responsible as others are through that process. So I don't know if that analogy works for you, but for me, that kind of put it into perspective once I contemplated that. Okay, so what do other nearby small cities do? We looked at a few different places. We weren't exhaustive by any means. We also weren't cherry picking. We made a list and we looked at those specific cities, but we were trying to look at places where we knew, we could find the information online, similar size to Benton City. We only looked at Eastern Washington communities. We didn't think you'd, appreciate us bringing up somebody from King County. We wanted to make sure it was kind of a comparable situation. So first we looked at Othello. They do have required improvements in Othello, and in summary, it's very similar to what is written in Benton City. Same sort of phrasing here. Side streets have to be improved to city standards, street lighting shall be provided, things like that. You have to have street lighting, all those things. The next slide, a little bit more about Othello. We see that they require subdividers to install water mains. It also says the subdivider's contractor shall reimburse the city for all expenses in testing the mains and making connections. So they're really putting a big, the onus on the person who is doing the project, right? The city isn't going out in that case and doing testing kind of as a nice thing or as a courtesy. Instead, that they do it because they need to, but they will then bill the subdivider for that. Othello codes are very clear that water and sewer mains must be installed by the person dividing the property. And then I just have listed other portions of their code that could be interesting to look at in case you wanted to dig in a little deeper onto what they require for drainage, streets, and so forth. The next slide, we find that for a final short plat process, that is the requirements for recording a short plat. The Othello code is clear that all required street and utility improvements must be constructed by the applicant and have to be accepted by the city, or a subdivision bond or other approved securities shall be submitted. What that means is before a final plat can be signed and recorded, those things have to be in place. Alternatively, they do allow a mechanism where you can pledge funds so that you can defer that, but it's still the obligation of the subdivider to do those improvements. Further, Othello requires a maintenance bond. That's basically for workmanship, right? You have to post up a maintenance bond that says, yes, we put in these roads, we put in these sidewalks. Sometimes things crumble away. Sometimes there's issues and we have to know that we're gonna be able to go back and fix it later. And so it's kind of like an insurance policy, if you will. All right, and then the next slide. I've lost my place here. Yeah, again, shall install water mains, sewer mains shall be installed by the subdividers. Those are requirements. And then next slide, I just show you the example of some decisions. So I know the planner up there, I was able to reach out. I've never worked directly with her, but I've met her at a meeting before and I said, can you send me some of your short plat decisions? I'd love to be able to share that information with Benton City. So she shared some, and the kind of language we saw was, yep, streets have to be improved to city standards. In lieu of that, they did allow some other provisions. They did allow for bonding. The next slide I found where they had a specific approval of a deferral of a street and utility improvement. And they deferred that on the basis that the city was going to be doing work in the future. So again, like I said before, we try to look at things with the understanding of the context and what's been done in the past, what can be done in the future, so that we don't overburden a developer. In this case, they were saying, we'd have you put in the improvements, but we know we're going to rip up that road in about 2 years because we've got things to do in there. So we're not going to, it would not be reasonable or a reasonable person could say, we can excuse you from that. So that's the idea.
Nicole,
Okay. Yes.
and interesting to note in the last line, sorry for interrupting, but interesting that deferral, they had to put up a bond to guarantee 150% of the estimated cost for the time it came up in a couple of years. Probably would that be the things that we see now, like some of the cost adjustments that come in and they're higher. So they might let you defer it, but they're not letting you off the hook. And in fact, they're asking for you to be ready for more.
I'm glad you brought that up. One reason is, and we wonder why would a city do that? Well, if a city has to go in and make the improvements later because the subdivider isn't able to, something prevents them, whatever is the circumstances, then the city has to use taxpayer resources in terms of staff time to go in and do it. They have to probably bid out the work. They probably have to pay prevailing wage. The idea is that city doing these projects is probably going to end up paying higher than the normal price. Plus, there's the escalation of material costs and all of these things that can occur, inflation. All of those types of factors are kind of worked into that. So that's why they inflate those costs.
Thanks, Nicole.
Sure. Okay, next slide. I'm trying to move kind of quickly here. Okay, this was the slide I was talking about, the deferral. So they specifically said, hey, we're looking at a place, we're not going to have you put the road in. But they also did note in this particular case that yeah, city will own the property in the future. That was also part of it. They were taking ownership. Okay, moving on, Grandview, we looked at them as well. Again, all very similar to what we have in Benton City's code. Our code is in alignment with what we see other places. They have a statement that says, you know, you have to have adequate means of drainage, water supply, sewage disposal, etc. The next slide I've excerpted for you, just different sections from sanitary sewer, water, and sidewalks, so you can see exactly how they phrase it. What I see here is things like shall be constructed at the developer's expense. Complete systems shall be installed at the expense of the developer. Like, they're very straightforward over there. Next slide, with a couple call outs here, it talks about street utility lighting and sidewalk improvements. I do see that there is a little bit more relaxed language here. It appears to provide some adjustments in terms of what's in place with the development, like sidewalk width. So if we find that, you know, things are not already built to standards coming up to your property, we're not going to make you, you know, do something that doesn't fit in, and then the next guy, you know, doesn't have to be at standards or whatever. There's also a discussion that some relief can be granted for improvement of adjacent streets in the subdivision. So that might be something to dive in a little deeper into too, but there's some maybe reasonable considerations that are made there. Moving on, we looked at Prosser as well. I remember Prosser being one of the ones that was called out that would be good to look at. Again, all very similar to what we find for Benton City. And then the following slide. Move on. Yes, thank you. I noticed the administrator may require other improvements or dedications of land to mitigate direct impacts of the short plat. That's pretty wide open. Yeah. It does state further, all improvements shall be at an owner's expense. Maybe they may require the improved areas improvements to be dedicated to the city after installation. No short plat may be recorded until the improvements have been completed or bond has been filed. So again, all very similar to Benton City, except they do allow for this bonding. Next slide goes to a few more details for Prosser. A little bit more about bonding. And we saw that Prosser requires a surety bond or other security to address workmanship and defects, and says that the maintenance of improvements is on the developer for 2 years. So for 2 years, they have to come in and maintain the new stuff they put in. Okay, and the next one I looked at was Union Gap over in Yakima County. Again, all very similar to what's written in Benton City, except that a bond is allowed. And if we go to the next slide, we see that a little bit more in detail. Again, it says subdividers shall complete all roads and other improvements as a condition of approval. They have to obtain the permits, they have to pay fees and inspection costs. Or in lieu of construction of the improvement, they have to do one of the following, I believe it's escrow account or post a bond. The next one I looked at was College Place, small town outside of Walla Walla in Walla Walla County. All required improvements shall be installed prior to deferral. You can defer only through city of approval of phasing plan or acceptance of a financial guarantee. The next slide shows that, you know, the same stuff that we've seen before. So I'll skip that. And then the following slide, I found this was interesting, so I called it out. The city of College Place can require offsite improvements. So what they're saying here is that the city is going to look at a broader level of effects, and they can say, okay, this isn't exactly, you know, on your property or even maybe right adjacent to it, but your property will affect that intersection. And so we're going to have you make some offsite improvements. That's what that really means. Right, so I wanted to call that out. The next slide for College Place, it says that the project sponsor at no cost to the city must do XYZ. Same things as we've been talking about. The following slide, specific to streets. Each lot needs to be accessible from a city street. It says frontage improvements can be deferred by the city in short plat, and they give exact criteria. And one is a no protest situation for an LID. So basically that says we can waive these requirements, but if we get you coming in with your houses and people coming in with these houses somewhere else, and we want to do this project, you're all going to contribute and you can't opt out of that, right? You're automatically in that type of program or initiative. We also see that the city can accept voluntary payment in lieu of the installation of required improvements that can be used later. And there's no time limitation on the use of those payments. So basically the city can, if they want to allow for it, say you had like 4 or 5 acre pieces or something, and we're pretty sure everybody within the next 5 years was going to subdivide. You could say, okay, in lieu of improvements today, we'll collect some money for each person, and then we can do the project, better at the end that will kind of serve that whole area. I'm just talking through a scenario. Next slide for College Place financial protections. I saw that in 2020, they put something in their code. It talks about bonds, similar forms of financial guarantee or protection can be posted to ensure continued compliance with any conditions imposed. Okay, so in summary, I have a table here. As you can see, everybody is requiring the same things: streets or alleys, or alleys, I should say, curb, gutter, sidewalk, potable water, sanitary sewer, streetlights, drainage, irrigation. If in a district, all of these things are required. I also put building plans on this table to show nobody is requiring building plans, and we are not as well. So Benton City is the top of this table. So we are in alignment with the other cities in terms of what we require of our developers of short plats. The last slide here, that's the last one, yes. And thank you for your patience with me. This is showing that some places do allow for other options. Benton City currently allows bonding only for subdivisions, for long plats, and does not allow it for short plats. Grandview, from what I can tell, also does not allow it for short plats. The other communities that we looked at do allow it. And in addition, Union Gap also allows for an escrow option. The takeaway here is that you could amend Title 17 if you so choose in the future to provide this option to developers. Some of the questions I think council would want to ask before pursuing something like that is, what is the city's capacity? What is the city's appetite for doing something like this? If you're going to work with developers, that can be great. It can bring really good benefits. But if you're already a city that's kind of constrained in terms of resources or staffing or doing other projects that you already have on the books, I would say that I wouldn't recommend something like that. It's not necessary. And people can go out and find their own funding mechanisms, frankly, to help them with their projects. But if you felt like it was important now or in the future to allow bonding, which would basically be a collaboration between taxpayers, the citizenry, your constituency, and developers that want to do things in the city, then you could look at that option. At the moment, your Title 17 code about short plats does not, to reiterate, does not allow for this bonding option. And that code we just revised a couple months back. So I would just remind you of that as well. Again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate being able to provide hopefully some clarity on this topic. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I want to say thank you for showing. So this will help.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone have questions?
I don't have any questions per se. I think.
Excuse me, David, would you get?
There
close
you
to-
go. All right, I'm here.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say is that looking at all these other cities, they're not as stringent as we are. They have the same requirements, but they're not saying that they need sewer stubs. They're not saying they need water stubs. They're saying they need mains or access. but they're not requiring, but one did require a full distribution system. In the particular case that this got brought up from, I still am of the proponent that, yeah, you may need a fire hydrant down there. You might need a light pole. But I don't think that this person developing the property, whatever you want to call them, seller, should be responsible for making that connection. They don't know where that house is going to go. They don't have a plan on where that house is going to go. This is putting a cart before the horse. And I think those conditions were not appropriate. And I understand those came from Mr. Rainey. I appreciate that, but I still think they were inappropriate for the area. I also have concern that nobody else has a sidewalk in that entire property or venue. And we're going to require one little stretch. I think that's inappropriate too for that particular property. I do not agree with those conditions. And I think there needs to be a mechanism that allows the administration to say, you know, a reasonable person wouldn't put this on somebody. That's just how I feel on the matter.
Mr. Sandretta, we can offer a sidewalk waiver, but it's a temporary thing until the rest of the development has sidewalks.
Well, we've done development. I can think of one house in particular that was an infill item, and that's what this property would tend to be, is an infill item. Where we didn't require it at all. We still haven't made them put sidewalks in. Whether or not they got a waiver at the time, I don't know that fact. But it's in a neighborhood without sidewalks, so we didn't make them put them in.
We'd have to check and see what's on the books if they
That-
had a waiver or not.
I understand that. What I'm saying is nobody else down there has a sidewalk. And so we're gonna go and we're gonna put in this little stretch of sidewalk. Or force them to put in a little stretch of sidewalk. What we're doing is we as a council are hindering development of infill.
Yeah, I think without other sidewalks around, we do have the right to give them a waiver.
Then why is that not put out as an option? It's a condition for approval. That's what I'm saying here. Everything is a set in stone condition to get that
Yeah.
approval.
It has to be done as soon as somebody else puts in a sidewalk. So it's not it's a deferral, I believe. It doesn't give them the right not to have a sidewalk. You have to put it in when the rest of the city starts developing.
Sure.
There.
But all the rest of the property around that particular property is already developed. So nobody's gonna put in a sidewalk
Mm.
until we come back and do it ourselves. And I'm not opposed to saying, hey, you need to put up some money on this. But again, there's so many pieces to that particular condition that are over the top in my mind for the area that the infill is at. And there needs to be a mechanism for the administrator or their designee to say, you know what? Nothing else around here has this. We're going to defer that. Or we're going to ask for a deferral or ask for a waiver, whatever the case is, and not put that burden on that person. That's my 2 cents on the matter, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
I would just remind the council once again that there were no procedural errors with this particular item that you're discussing and referring back to. If a person feels aggrieved by a decision, if they feel that the decision is inappropriate, they have every right to appeal. And
Well-
that right was not taken up.
That's another thing, is I think that needs to be extended as well.
And if an appeal is made, then it comes to this body for a decision as the appellant board. So it would have come to council had he filed an appeal, and then you could dig into it. But the decision on short plats is administrative. That's done on purpose. We only have 30 days to kick out a decision. That's per state law. So we don't have time to take it to council, and it doesn't need to go to a hearing. I mean, that's the way it's built to be done.
I'm not asking for it to come here.
And,
And I'm not saying your procedure's wrong.
okay,
I'm saying that there needs to be a way to fix this so that we're not putting an undue burden on the person who's trying to fix an infill problem. You're taking it personally, Nicole, and it's not personally. You guys did a great job.
Oh, I'm not.
But I'm
taking it
saying the
personally, Paul.
policy is wrong. We as a city are going, no, we don't want you to develop this infill property. That's what we did. That's what we did. You, Alan, me, the mayor, when we said that's okay, we told him, you know what? Keep the property. We don't want you to develop it. We're not serving the public interest. There needs to be a mechanism to circumvent or relax those descriptions that we have so that we're not saying you have to have sewer stubbed in. You have to have water stubbed in. You know what? There's not a sidewalk for 18 blocks, but you need to have sidewalk.
I'll just say I don't take any of this personally. I just think that maybe I'm not doing my best job providing the information and providing kind of that education piece. That's where I think I'm probably falling short, because I would just point out that it was done fairly. It was done properly. If the person didn't like the decision, they had recourse, but they didn't take it up. And I think it's really important that we turn it around in 30 days, because time is important for developers. They want certainty. That's what we're providing. If you want a short plat, these are the things you have to do. He had a mechanism to dispute it if he felt aggrieved by it. That's fair. That's a good process. And it wasn't a done deal until the appeal period lapsed. I'm bringing this up because you're going to have more and more of these. Benton City is growing. And I'm reminded too that a lot of the subdivision rules, you know how I talked about ocean shores and these places, it's a consumer protection mechanism, right? It's so that people don't buy land that is substandardly, developed or prepared or has characteristics that are going to lead to accidents on the road, things like that. We're trying to look out for all of those factors. And there's tons of factors we're trying to look at. Health and safety, certainly. But also just what does the city want in their communities? What type of growth do you want? What type of character in the community do you want? Going back to your comprehensive plan. So with that, I think that's about what I can offer to you. And just maybe I've given you a couple things to think about tonight in terms of how you might want to move forward and what role the city might have or not have, depending on what you're prepared for. You don't have a planning director. You don't have a staffed engineer. You outsource a lot of things and you do have great people working for you, but that might make you think, do we have the capacity like these other cities that might have the staffing, full-time staff doing these things to make these things happen?
Well,
I think it's premature from what I can see.
I don't disagree with you that there needs to be a staff position. I've looked at this a lot, and I cannot in a reasonable thought process say that property, looking at it from all the surrounding properties, should have all the conditions that are set on it. And that's a disagreement between me and you.
Well, we actually haven't gone through all of those, and maybe that would be a fruitful conversation at some point. I've avoided talking specifics because it's a decision that's already been completed. It
Yes.
wasn't appealed. So I've actually not brought up the specifics, but I think if we went and looked at the language, sat down perhaps with the engineer that made comments on it, maybe we'd shed some light on it. If it's really all about that particular thing, we should look at that particular thing. But I've always been trying to bring you the broader picture, the broader scope, because the question that was posed to me was, is our code, deficient? Is there a problem here? Was there a procedural problem? Those are the types of things I've been trying to help along with.
Well, and I never thought there was a procedural problem.
Mhm.
I felt that the code is too stringent in the aspect that these other cities have it wide so that they can make decisions on particular properties such as infill properties. What can we do? are we going to hold them to the same standard as we are putting a brand new development in?
I think most cities you would find would have a very similar decision to the one that was prepared here.
Well,
I really do.
and
And I've written like 20 different short plat
I get
decisions
you.
for a nearby county.
But
So,
in the same token, I talked to one of those particular cities and they said, oh, on infills, we don't do things like that.
okay.
So you see where I'm at.
Mhm.
I'm going, if we're going to hinder development, what's the purpose behind that? Because that's exactly what I see done here. Is we've overburdened that developer in an area that really doesn't need that much burden.
Okay. To that point, I would encourage this council, when you're doing your next comprehensive plan update and you're looking at things to do, you might look at where can you incentivize infill development? Where do you want to relax standards perhaps to accommodate that? Because that could be baked into your comprehensive plan. And then we have something to stand on. Right now, we have to treat it the same because that's what the codes say. So if you want something like that brought about, that's the place to start, because the comprehensive plan has primacy over development. That's per the state's Growth Management Act. So that's the place to start. And then we look at implementing it through our code. So if that's a real concern, I think that's something that you can look to there as a remedy. I think that's a good pathway. And then secondarily to that, I think that what was I say? So infill development is one thing that you can look at in particular. And then, the other question is, are you hindering development or are you elevating development? You know, these are the types of things I would ask you to ponder. How many things do you want to slip away? How many things do you want to give away in terms of standards versus requiring, maybe more, visually attractive neighborhoods, better circulation, improved facilities, things like that. Because I know that I've heard from folks on the Planning Commission or folks on this council some disappointment that there aren't better facilities in some places in the city, like, oh, we've got aged infrastructure and it wasn't built the right way the first time. I've heard that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
that's maybe those are all things that to consider. And again, I would encourage you to do that by looking at your comprehensive plan.
I think that's a
Okay.
great suggestion, and I think we'll, Mr. Sandretto, if you have some specifics, if you could be sure and let us know. I heard sidewalk waivers and sewer stubs. I don't know what else you are thinking about, but we certainly should be able to talk about that.
Madam Mayor, may I have the floor?
Yes, you may.
So thank you for all the good information. I think the analogy was a really
I'm sorry to talk so long.
great one.
That's
Well, I think it's
all right.
important,
No,
right?
it
Because
is.
It affects
It
our
is
citizens.
important.
And I think the comment around remedy for the comp plan sounds like a good one. I'd also ask that from an administrative perspective, when you think about the development that's here right now, and this can be tricky because you got some big parcels of land that could potentially be targets or opportunities for some of this, but I think you need to and want to come and say, so how many, like, where on the city map do you have infill things? Like, how do you think about defining that versus where could you see other opportunities for short plat, which there's plenty, but we're also getting to a shorter list of what plenty could be because of the coverage. And so I think that I'd really recommend and encourage from an administrative perspective that as we continue to look at staffing and we have good staff helping us both inside and outside, that we understand that as a city. Are we talking about 10 more places? Or are we talking about 3 more?
Well,
Because I think
we,
that's helpful
when-
too, for where we are now. And as we think about annexation in the comp plan too.
when we looked at the amount of land that hadn't been used, we came up with less than 10% as undeveloped.
But it's not all subject to short plats, that 10%.
Well, no, that was total. That was,
Larger properties.
yeah,
maybe.
there's a few larger ones, but not many. It's, down to the small ones pretty much now.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, Nicole.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now we'll move on to the hiring of additional positions. Mr. Bogus.
Okay, well, I'm back asking for more people.
The third item. There's nothing in the packet for this. It's just.
Oh, no, I didn't. I just have, I'm broaching the subject with a couple of numbers that I can give you guys. We are losing our city planning staff. We are on the last legs working with Nicole and her crew with the great job they have done. I will tell you that we pay a hefty price for two things. That is city planning and building inspection. We outsource both those, and expected for this year is $332,000, $711.87. A really hefty bill. It comes out to an average monthly bill of $27,725 to outsource these two positions. What I would like to do is I would like to create an in-house city planner / assistant project manager to do the city planning, and then help backup Jose to do the actual projects. The second position that I would like to bring in-house is building inspection / there's another term, just the building guy who's going to do our inspections and take care of that. So between these two, it's the $27,725. In-house, if we were to go for the year, I took the numbers from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics and the average for each of these, increased those by 40%. And the number that I get is $202,160, which is an approximate savings of $130,000. Now, of course, these numbers aren't perfect, and this is my first go around to put these numbers together, but the city needs this. From the perspective of planning, if we have an in-house planner, we have an in-house planner, somebody working for us full-time that will be at a desk where we can call them and say, hey, this is what's going on. We don't have to wait. And that person will be able to work hand in hand with Jose, with Spink Engineering to get the job done. And it'll move smoother, quicker, and be less expensive. So I would like you guys to think about this. And hopefully have an answer for me at the next council meeting. I want to do a formal presentation to ask for you to do that. I'm not sure. I'll probably have to speak with Craig about this, whether I want to entertain talking with Teamsters about the memorandum of understanding for these two positions and what that would look like. So that's what I've got for you in a nutshell. If you would like, I can take the stuff that I did get prepared after the agenda and email it to all of you.
I'm good. That's my goal anyway, so.
Hey, David.
I said, yes, I'm good with it. That's my goal anyway.
Madam Mayor, may I have the floor?
Yes, you may.
I would strongly recommend the treasurer reports be caught up. The 2022, and you put together the 2022 trip of the budget, and we can look at things holistically. I understand that it's saving and that it's important, and I think it needs to be looked at from a comprehensive perspective, in addition to just looking at things one by one.
Okay, I understand that. And to address the comment on the treasurer's reports, I understand that they are behind. I am currently addressing that. And you guys will start getting treasurer's reports. I can send you one for May here this week. Beyond that, there are issues in personnel getting that done, which I am approaching. We're putting on some new staff, which will help because that'll be a full-time person. At this juncture in my position, there's only so much I can do to move it forward quicker. And I am doing that as best I can.
And our budget for 2023 is due very soon to the state. So while this is a very timely discussion, and I want to be clear that I'm very supportive of adding appropriate staff and reducing outsourcing for taxpayers, for the benefit of the city, for everybody on the team. I really encourage that we need to be not looking at these things in silos, even though it's great to say that there's a savings.
Well, and I guess one of the things that I should have said is that this is something that's basically already budgeted for because we knew what we were paying outsourcing it
And I would
in the budget.
respectfully disagree because we're over budget in these categories from what was approved, which is illegal from a state perspective, which is why I would encourage that we just work to line things up. And I appreciate that you have a lot on your plate.
Okay,
We're
and,
gonna
and
get caught up. I know we will.
I went through my training last week, so budget will be the big push for the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on then to the next agenda item, which is Hope Lane Water Line paving and sewer options. Mr. Rainey.
See. Do we have? Can we put up this sheet on in the budget? The packet. Okay, does everybody see that? Okay. Okay, so I put together 3 different costs for Hope Lane, and the first summation column is full development. That would be curb gutter, storm drainage, paving out 34-foot width. And something that was not talked about last time was the need to replace the sewer line. Sewer line is a 6-inch, and that needs to be replaced to an 8-inch line to provide the adequate capacity for potential development around the Ida Irma, right behind the church and pet overpopulation, I believe, right in that area. So if we're going to pave the whole thing now, we need to look at redoing the sewer line, because as soon as somebody comes in to do something in that area, they would have to upgrade that sewer line at that time. And with redoing the sewer line, we could put in something like a latecomers agreement or an assessment fee. So any house that connects up to the sewer that utilizes this line, they would be charged a fee to help cover that cost. So the full development is just what it says. Again, curb and gutter, paving, sewer replacement, and paving the whole thing. Another option we could look at is number 2 is just replace the sewer and pave a full width without curb and gutter, and then you wouldn't have to do the storm drainage. And so that is almost $200,000 cheaper than the full improvement. Or we can go with just what we plan to do is paving the north portion of the road where we moved everything out into the road, and that cost would be an additional $46,000, almost $47,000 to the project. So
The last one is without replacing the 6-inch line.
correct, without replacing the sewer. So that would just patch what we're doing now, and then relying on the developer to replace the 6-inch line to 8-inch line.
Where would the funding come from for this project? And what is available for that?
That I have not gone into detail on that. trying to find what line items we have in the sewer budget right now, to see what's available.
I think again, this is a budget issue that we don't know exactly where we stand until we have the reconciliations. And I think, Patrick, if you could look up all of our options with the sewer
Mhm.
line. I know we have some capital improvement money. 500,000 in that, I believe.
Yeah.
But again, without having a clear picture of where we stand. It's difficult.
How much time do we have to make a decision before this delays the work on the project?
Excuse
Right
me,
now,
Sarah,
they're-
excuse me, Sarah, could you please put the mic in front of you closer?
Can you hear me now?
Apparently not.
Yes, I can hear you good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My apologies. My question was how much more time we had to work on making a decision for one of these recommendations, and thank you for putting them together before we delay the work that's already being completed at Hope Lane.
Right. Currently, they are still working on the water line. They are installing services at this point. They're gonna make the connection into Horn Drive next week. So awkward pause. So with this, there was a couple items we're looking at. The full improvement. If we were going to do that, we probably wouldn't get to paving this winter just because we have to go in, put in the sewer, put in storm drainage, and then put in curb and gutter. And so it'd probably sit as a gravel road until next spring, and then it would be paved. Replacing the sewer and just paving the width, we probably could get that done before the winter weather comes in. And the patching, obviously we'll get that in before. So I guess it sounds like we need to try to see if there is actual money in the budget, to see if we can move forward with either of those other two options. Is there a preferred option at this point that?
I would think I can speak for most of the council in saying we would like to have it done right, 100%.
Right.
However, I also think that I can speak for several people on the council and say, we really need to figure out this budget issue. So do we have the ability to wait at least 2 weeks and come back and talk
Yes,
about
I
that?
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we need to do, and we need to dig into those budgets and see where we're sitting. Best we can, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I will work with Patrick on that and we'll see what we can find out with the budgets and where they stand.
So we'll put this on from 2 weeks in the next council meeting, October.
Yes, yep. And hopefully we would be able to make it an item for an action item or
Right.
yeah, in section I.
I think we could probably have an answer for you as an action item regardless,
Yeah.
but it may be the cheapest of the
Right.
three options, but we can definitely have an
Yeah.
answer for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then, purchase a street sweeper. Jose, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here. I wasn't aware this was gonna be on here, but I'm here.
Okay, we thought you wanted to talk about the street sweeper.
Well, I guess, the reason why I wanted to bring it up was because, we're talking about budget, we're talking about, fixing Hope Lane the right way. And, maybe like, like everybody's thinking, maybe we do look at the overall budget and, you know, obviously I'm looking at fleet, I'm looking at equipment, I'm looking at, different streets and stuff that, let's put everything together and then present it to council the right way and see where we go from there. I mean, obviously we need to get the budget figured out. We need to get numbers figured out so we know what direction to take and what's the best direction for council to make a decision. So, I mean, as far as the street sweeper, of course, I would love to have one. They're averaging about $150,000 to $200,000. And, that's obviously brand new piece of equipment that would serve every street that has curb and gutter. And that's something that we could do, at least once a month, maybe even more as needed. We were outsourcing our street sweeping from West Richland. Unfortunately, they don't have the manpower to help us out with that anymore. I did reach out to Marty, which is the public work director for Prosser, the city of Prosser. And unfortunately, they also don't have the manpower to help us out. I'm currently working with DOT from Prosser to see if they would be able to enter like an interlocal agreement with us. I believe the current budgeted amount for this year is $7,000, and that was for the interlocal agreement for them to do it up to 3 times a year. So that's a little bit of an insight on what we've been doing for street sweeping. As of right now, we have no way of maintaining our curb and gutter. So what that's going to end up doing is filling up our catch basins with debris, garbage, and then it's going to just domino effect and create more problems down the road. We did get a retired older sweeper from West Richland. I believe that was gifted to Benton City, but unfortunately that thing is too far gone to where it's hard to source any type of parts or any find anybody that sells the parts to fix what's wrong with the truck. So I don't know if there's any questions from council for me regarding that, but I just kind of want to bring it up to everybody's attention and kind of, see if you guys had anything for me on that.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Does council have any questions for Jose?
Create your budget, add it in, and we will take a look at it.
Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you very much, Jose. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item is the procedure for excusing absences. The particular item is on the next page. It's item F. I just wanted to make everyone aware that we do have a process in place for that. And I know that there's been some issues. Several times Mr. Sandretto has not received notification. And I'm wondering, Mr. Sandretto, all the numbers I had for you were wrong. I got your number from Jessica, but I'm wondering if the city has all of your correct numbers at this point, and make sure your email is, here's a city email. It should be the same. Okay,
I would also like to point out that the last 2 special meetings I've received no notification of.
okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to request, thank you for bringing this, up the process for excusing absences. It'd be really helpful if we could re-add to the agenda just to make sure we excuse absences as appropriate to make sure that that's happening. And we know that there's been a lot of things coming up and reasons to get together, and we want to be supportive of that, but equally make sure we can excuse absences and we don't forget to do that,
Okay.
please.
And so I think it's appropriate that we send an email to everyone for these meetings, at least a day in advance. Whenever we have them, I know we've been posting them on the website, I believe. Have
I
you
post
sent?
them on the website and then I email the agendas and packets to each member of the council.
Okay,
I think along with this, it may be appropriate to add in as well a procedure on how to notify council for these meetings. In my case, particularly the special meetings, with previous staff, they would phone us to let us know there was a special meeting to ensure our attendance, or to actually just to check to see if we were available to attend the meeting. And I would like to see that continue. I think that would be great. Even a text message saying, hey, we've got a special meeting scheduled at this date. I don't check my email daily. I get to it probably once a week. So as of right now, I haven't received an email since September 2nd. So
I wonder if we got his number in there wrong or somehow.
You didn't get the packet and agenda?
no, I have received no email since September 2nd.
We need to check your email then.
And in the last special meeting, I received no notification.
The special meeting was something that came sideways. And one of the other council members was calling people to see.
I was
if
gonna
they could
say,
actually put
I
it
believe
together.
I was contacted via text on that one.
I was told from that other council member that I would be getting notification for a Friday afternoon meeting, so.
I couldn't
Correct.
hear you,
With the
Mr.
Zoom link.
Sandretto. Could you?
David, could you speak into the mic, please?
I said that I was told that I would be notified by email with a Zoom link. That I never received.
Madam Mayor, while we're on the topic of the procedures, I know we're focused on item F, but I would just note, if my memory serves, which it may or may not, item G for telephonic attendance, I believe council prior to me being seated had made some type of amendment for COVID that I'm not sure carried through to this section. I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly from listening to council meetings, I believe that was the case.
Yes, we can look at that.
And if we could also add a Zoom option, since we are doing Zoom, now,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Point of clarification, you mean a Zoom option for the council members?
Yeah.
For the
put it-
Correct.
telephonic attendance area, probably.
Maybe call it our alternative attendance policy,
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
telephone, Zoom, something.
Probably gonna have to add that to the ordinances somehow.
Correct. As it would read right now, I would, if anybody were to attend via Zoom, I would think that would have to be an absence because of the way the code currently reads.
Because it's worded, it's not in here in the code.
All right.
I understand what he's saying, so I think that is something that we should look at. Mr. Briggs, do you want to take that task?
Oh, yeah, we could take a look at that. I don't think that would be a very difficult fix.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other items to discuss? If not, then we will move on to the next item, which is the 14th Street Park improvements and disc golf on motorized boat launch.
All right, it looks like only one of the cost estimates I prepared that I got into the packets, and that is for the disc golf course. And in there, we have the two costs for the disc golf course. One is if a contractor did all the construction. And the other one was if we had some volunteer effort with that. And then also I have a cost estimate here for the parking lot expansion at the 14th Street Park. I don't know if that's the correct name for it. Is there a name for that park?
Fish and
on-
wildlife area as far as I
Yeah, I
know.
thought it was called fishing area.
Or
I know
River
there's a
Walk.
sign.
It's called River Walk, I think, on the
Oh,
contract.
yeah.
I don't know.
But here, I'm gonna hand out the cost estimate for expanding the parking lot for gravel parking. And then extending a road down and constructing the non-motorized boat launch.
Always about money with you, isn't it?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. And before we go too far with this, I do want to discuss this a little bit with council. When we first talked about this, we authorized 9 holes. And then when we got this back, we have essentially the whole park covered with disc golf. I was talking to some people, quite a few people actually, and a lot of them think that the beauty of that park is having some quiet areas. And if we could perhaps reconfigure this golf course to allow some quiet areas on the south side so that we could have a trail that's basically uninterrupted by Frisbee golf. I would be in favor of that. There's, our initial permission was for 9 holes. So if we could keep it up towards the middle and up to one end so that there is some natural quiet areas, I would appreciate that modification.
Madam Mayor, may I speak, please?
Yes, you may.
Alrighty, so I know that last time we initially had discussed 9 holes, but when we had a discussion with Fish and Wildlife, they had prompted us about doing 18-hole course. And I know that you mentioned there's some concern from the community regarding noise. Disc golf itself it is a calm sport. There's no noise that really comes back behind it. It still allows people to be able to walk through nature, still be able to enjoy nature itself. And then at the same time, they are adding more workout equipment. They are adding a boat launch. So if we're trying to tame noise that all these other projects may possibly bring more, it may attract more people, that may be more noise to the park itself.
It's a non-motorized boat launch, so I don't, certainly construction will bring some issues. But I'm opposed to having every available piece of that park turned into a golf course.
As a point of clarification, thanks Alan for putting this together. On the disc golf course, item number 10 reflects a cultural survey of $7,500. And then on the cost estimate that you handed out for parking lot expansion, there's another cultural survey for $7,500. Is it a
Correct.
$15,000 cultural survey or is it $7,500?
Right.
for
Well,
everything?
That's what we're gonna talk about is combining the work under that. I think we would get one cultural survey done for $7,500. But if you only do the disc golf course versus the other thing, you still have the $7,500 cost in there. And we're also looking at combining this with some other projects. We're gonna be having the bike path from the Pawtucket Estates that goes down to the river. That's gonna need a cultural resource survey. And some of the other projects, the lift station on Babs Avenue, that's gonna need a cultural resource survey done. So if we can group all these together, I think we can save money on all of them. And that would be the intent, but until we have all the projects all lined up and ready to go, we have to kind of assume that they're gonna be done individually at this point. But we're hoping to get those projects all lined up, that we can have them all go out as one project for a cultural resource.
What are we looking to do here?
Well, I think we're trying to kind of get an idea of where you guys want to go with some of this stuff. Again, I know some of this falls back on budget, so that's something that we could be looking at some of this for the next budget cycle.
I think budget is probably a huge thing. Also, I know it was mentioned, I don't know if it was in the last council meeting or the one previous to that, about the Blacktop Estates Park that is on the city to develop. And I mean,
Right,
I would hate for that to go back.
correct.
So I mean, I think that's more something that we need to focus in on how we can continue to keep that or be able to form that into a green space of some form versus, I mean, I think it'd be cheaper to do that one right now versus this one. And if we can maybe get something smaller right now.
Right.
I mean, I think this is a great idea. Don't get me wrong. And I think it's a great goal and I'd love for this to go through. I'm just concerned if we don't, I don't know what our time limit is on that Blacktop Estates Park,
Yeah.
but,
I have been discussing that with staff, with Jose, Sergio, and Marcos. And one thing that we're looking at doing is putting together a layout for irrigation. So we can get irrigation in and then at least start some grass up there. And I think that would fulfill, making it a park or green space. I think Sergio and Marcos were both talking that they can actually take it up to, I think it's Valley Irrigation. I think irrigation specialist will do the same thing. You can take in the drawing of the property and they can lay out the system for you. They'll design it. And that way then it's all designed. You just buy the materials. And they were considering whether or not they would have the time to install it with city staff.
I guess I still have a question. Or have we totally given up on the splash pad or are we looking for another grant?
Well, the RCO grant cycle was this year. And so that was not put it as part of the grant applications. So yeah, we would, go for the next one when it's available or any other funding source that we can find for that. And yeah, so I think this would be the first step is get irrigation in, get the park in. And we are planning to lay out the irrigation system to help with the eventual splash pad layout.
Okay.
So it wouldn't disrupt the whole irrigation system. We just take out a few sections of it.
Okay.
I think I'm in agreement with everything else that's been said so far. I know originally the non-motorized boat launch was going to be put in due to the kayak summer program, which is now gone and null and void. So I think we could put that on hold along with the parking lot expansion, saving us $260,000 at this point. I'm also in agreement with the mayor that 18 holes looks like it would greatly cover the bulk of that area. And I would like to see it stay back towards 9. I'm not opposed to developing that area more fully in the future, but I think at this point we need to pull back with what we've been spending and look at the budget first before we go ahead and
Okay.
say we're going to start doing this stuff.
Okay. And so with that, I guess we'll look at that, pare it back, and provide another cost estimate. I mean, essentially, the cost estimate would be, the one with volunteers would be half of that. And then that $7,500 may be less also if we pair the projects with cultural survey. So
Do those have an expiration on them once they're performed?
I do not believe they do.
Okay.
I guess we could phase the idea of the boat launch because without it, we can't have a program. We just don't have enough distance.
Madam Mayor, I'd recommend that as the budget gets drafted and you're going through all the various departments, prioritization for capital projects and operating, put it on the list, put all of it on the list.
Yes,
Put it on the list
yes.
of prioritization and bring it forward.
Exactly. We will.
Agreed.
But right now, as far as marching orders, I think I'm in agreement with Councilman Moakland. 9 holes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you,
you
Alan.
have your direction then. So
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so the last discussion item is the contract vehicle for the second clerk. And I believe we had Mr. Reed and Craig and I had a meeting last Friday or Monday. I lose track. I think it was Friday. And we thought that making the contract for an additional clerk would be the correct way to do that, to move forward with this. And I think we will have more discussion in the executive session, the qualifications and that sort of thing. So are there any questions on that? Okay. Okay. So at this point, we will move into a series of 3 executive sessions. And I'm thinking of asking for half an hour. I don't know how fast we can go through this, but so I will be adjourning the regular meeting and we will come back in a half hour. If not, we will notify you at the door that we need to extend.
Thank you.
Everyone in agreement with that time?
Yes,
Okay.
returning at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. So,
Has the recording been?
Pause recording, please.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you need another elbow.
Is there a button you pushed on the?
Yeah, I'm coming for that. Just unmute that. I'll fix the other.
Welcome back live.
Feel retraction. It's cold outside.
is it?
I want to go to Arizona.
All right, is everyone back?
The one that's here.
Okay, I'm calling this, reconvening the city council meeting. Okay, the next item on the agenda are
Water meters.
water meters. That's right, purchase of additional meters. And last time okay, this didn't get in there the way I had dictated it.
Madam,
I've got one. You want me to read what I've got here?
I see what you have there. You have the old estimate for 20. And that's okay. It can go through this way. I had, because we didn't have an exact price. on this. We had discussed getting some ahead. They don't have any right now, but we wanted to move forward with a request authorization to purchase 10 to 15 of them as soon as they come in. But we won't know what the prices of those are. So I had recommended that this read purchase of the cost of water meters not to exceed $12,000 was my recommendation,
Okay.
because we don't know what the new price will be.
I move to approve the purchase of additional water meters with Core and Main not to exceed $12,000.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Unk, I,
Mochler, aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item is the Hope Lane water line change order number 2.
I'm very familiar with this. We've told you to go ahead with it.
Right.
So unless somebody has some items for discussion on it, I move to approve change order number 2 for Hope Lane Water Line in the amount of $28,941.38, which includes sales tax. Thank you, Alan. And for a contract total after change order of $283,807.47.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Unk, I,
Mochler, aye.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is the approval of the second reading of ordinance 1040 for the finance clerk. And included in that is the ordinance which lists the financial clerk salary as $52,000.
Madam Mayor, I have a point of clarification to bring up. I know this is noted as ordinance 1040, but when I was looking back at our August meeting, ordinance 1040 first reading was related to flood damage prevention.
Oh,
So this is a duplicate
Okay,
ordinance number. So I believe that this should be,
okay, so that one did actually have a first reading. I'm not sure because the records that I'm working with are not,
it was from August,
Good.
but appreciate it was your first meeting.
so it was the,
So
oh, okay,
the flood damage prevention, one that you,
Brought
Madam
up.
Mayor, needed to
we
take
did
up.
not pass that.
We did not pass it, so
No.
it was not a first reading.
No, no.
Okay, so
it
this
was
is
not.
correct then as it's
Okay.
stated.
I
Do we
think
need
it
to
was-
bring the flood? Okay, then separately have that
It will come
question.
back. It will
Okay.
be coming back.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. So then it's not a duplicate. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess with that, I move to approve on the second reading of ordinance 1040 finance clerk.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Unk, I,
Mochler, aye.
Okay, motion carries. So the last order of business then is confirmation of our 2 new clerks. And the first one is for Sherry Panor. Sherry, would you like to get up and say a few words?
Sherry, come on down.
Don't be shy.
shall we get out the big spotlight?
Yeah,
Dun, dun, dun.
you could.
Thank you for the job. I really could use it now that I've moved here from Juneau, Alaska.
And from what I hear, you had a rather harrowing trip coming back.
Yes, it was very exciting. I wouldn't recommend anybody do it. Yeah, it was a long trip. We left from Juneau, went to Skagway, went up through the Yukon and through Canada, and it was like 4 days. And then I discovered we were on a highway that they call the Highway of Cheers, which there's more to it with what Americans say about it, so I'm just not going to go there.
But it was
It was
you-
a good trip.
yes,
Just, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
I think you told me it was 2 lanes all the way. and-
2 lanes all the
tractor
way. We
trailers
had
were-
one road that literally didn't even have a strip of paint down the middle of it. So it was just like all these logging trucks. I've never seen so many logging trucks, and they're 3 trailers.
Oh,
Yeah.
my.
And the fuel trucks and the logging trucks, and it was just like, well, they're not short of fuel, but their money's different than ours. There's only what is it, 74 cents to our dollar. So you have to, when you go in to get gas, you have to literally say exactly how much you're getting. So like you're getting $152 or $150 worth of gas. And it's just like, I'm looking at it, I'm guessing, So we got here and we looked at it, it was only like $75. I was like, oh, shoot, good. So yeah. But anyways,
Madam Mayor, may I address Ms. Benoit?
you what?
May I address Ms. Benoit?
Yes.
Hey, so we've all seen your resume, but there are people in the audience that have not. Would you tell us your history, what you know?
With Juno?
Yep, what you did up there.
Well, in Juno, I worked in accounts payable and did other various things. My check runs were very much larger than I imagine your city budget. I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. It's just late. I was in accounts payable, worked with basically everybody, did grants, I didn't look for grant money, but they have somebody that just goes and gets the grant money, and then we fund it out, source it out to Juno. Pretty much pays for your daycare, you to work for them. I didn't have kids though up there, so my kids are all grown. They own the airport, they own the hospital, they own the school districts. So there was 2 of us doing accounts payable for all these different divisions. So it was quite busy.
Well, I bet.
Yeah.
It's a nice little town. I was just there about 6 months ago.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice. Crowded. Well, there's a lot of cruise ships. When we didn't see cruise ships for quite a while,
Oh.
then all of a sudden they came back and it was like, are they really that big? That's gotta be a mega ship out there, Yeah, no, Juneau's a really nice place as long as it's not raining all the time.
Yeah, my day was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
So on that note, Madam Mayor, I'll move to confirm Sherry Penower as a position of finance clerk.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Okay.
Mochler, aye.
Thank you.
Welcome to
you.
Benton City.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
We'll see you at work tomorrow. Okay, and now our next confirmation for clerk position is Carla Meyer. Carla, would you mind coming forward?
Hi all, and now I can see everybody's names and, and you. That wasn't fair, I couldn't see your name. So,
Would you put the mic closer to you, please?
I'm sorry, Margaret, what?
She
Oh,
asked
She wants the microphone.
microphone closer.
Microphone closer.
You got to pretty much chew on these things.
deal?
Yeah.
Anyway, but thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think it's great, so I'm excited, so.
I'll hit you.
I was gonna say, Mr. Sandretta will probably want you to discuss your background a little bit as well.
In what part?
Oh,
clerk.
municipal,
Legal,
whatever you
both.
got for us.
So, well, before moving down here, I was with the clerk's office in Grant County. Started out as a deputy clerk, went to clerk supervisor, and did that for like about 8 years, something like that. So there was like 13 women that I supervised and, made sure everything was covered. Made sure people were cross-trained. I thoroughly believe in cross-training because it's like, you don't know who's going to be gone. From there, when I moved down here, I went into the legal field. And so, I've had extensive customer service interaction to say the least, but, yeah, and it was all, either bankruptcy work or civil work or a little bit of everything. So anyway, and then I was made the bookkeeper office manager for the law firm, which took care of everything. So it was complete office management, all of the accounts payable, receivable, took care of all the reconciliations of bank accounts, and did that for like 4 years. So. anyway,
Thank you.
Great.
What
Thank
law
you.
firm was that? Is that-
Tulare Law.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
No conflict. You're good.
No.
I guess with that, I move to approve Carla Meyer for the position of clerk for the city of Benton City, Washington.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Okay.
Mochler, aye.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
I guess I should ask what time tomorrow.
Probably the office hours are from 7:30 to 4, but if you don't come in right on time the first time, that's okay. Okay. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment real quick?
Yes, you may.
And then I'll give you your motion.
All right.
I'd like to thank everybody on council as well as everybody that was here this evening and participated in this meeting and trying to better the city. On that note, Madam Mayor, I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Mochler, aye.
Yes.
We're all in favor.
Yes.
Motion-
Could I
Meeting
have
is adjourned.
Linda